Erik, I want to start with Tosh Lupoi, who your colleague over at Austin Audibles, Matt Prame, was, shall we say, passionately defending because of the hot seat talk that I've talked about a good chunk of on this show. And I think I'm a little bit more in the I understand where fans are coming from camp. I have not been in the get rid of Tosh Lupoi camp where some Oregon fans have been. But after the Penn State game, I got a big chuckle from Matt, who was just so over this idea that Tosh isn't a good enough defensive coordinator to get Oregon where they want to go. This is the first time in a big game since he's been there that Oregon's held a team under 30 points. So it was definitely a landmark performance. And I just wondered what you thought about all of that.
I'll start with this. Matt's passionate plea was followed by Dan Lanning really propping his guy up in the Ducks versus them. Like that stood out to me. Not that it was like a necessary vote of confidence. I doubt that was the reasoning behind it, but to run like a 15-second, 20-second kind of Dan addressing the team, saying this is the hardest worker I've ever been around. He puts his guys in position better than anybody I've ever been around. Certainly kind of ran counter to some of the narratives. Now, it's also hard to ignore like some of the previous pitfalls that's happened in some of the losses. Like I don't disagree with the fact that he has had moments and the defense has had, like, not to put it all on him either, but the defense has had moments that have not been great. And if you're probably being honest, like the 6 games Oregon has lost, throw out Georgia because they were going to get shellacked in that game no matter who was calling offense or defense. You could make a case the defense was the lesser side of the football and probably was
Absolutely
more cause than the offense in all those games.
You go back to those, heartbreaking 3-point Washington losses. Yeah. There were 3 of them. Oregon's offense didn't score fewer than 33 points in a game in any of them.
31 or 33.
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick.
Might have been 34, 31 and 1 or regardless. Yeah, no, so I think I can understand the thinking and the logic in that. I'm also very staunchly in I'm going to trust that Dan, as a defensive coordinator himself with the history he's had working with Tosh, knows what he has. If that game went the other way though, and Penn State ran for 295 yards again and won the game going away, and Oregon didn't have any answers, I would have been understanding of maybe this isn't the right fit. Just like I know Penn State fans are kind of addressing some things with their coordinators, especially like a Kotelnicki, who's I think been pretty darn impressive at times, but also like I understand you're booing the offense in the third quarter of a really big game, or maybe even the first
at home.
half.
Yeah,
at home,
at home.
That sort of suggests where that fan base is at. I mean, if you're an elite program and you want to win national championships, the stakes are high and the expectations are really high. And I understand if you believe to this point Tosh was like 0-5 against elite competition or in big games in terms of getting it done, but Saturday certainly he did, and you have to give a ton of credit to him. Yeah. You have to give a ton of credit for the talent there and the players up front, I think, in the trenches for the way they played, kind of shutting down that narrative. I don't think there's any question coming out of that one who was better in the trenches, and it might not have even been all that close of a decision if you're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, I have said all week that Oregon's defensive line was the best unit on either side of the ball for either team on Saturday night. That was the unit that won the game. By the way, back to the Washington conversation, those 3 straight 3-point losses to the Huskies, the offense put up 34, 33, and 31.
Okay, yeah, 31.
Like in those matchups, and I think that's where it comes from, is in those spots. If you'd said going in, hey, Oregon's going to score 34, 33, and 31, you tell me if you hold a team to 30 points exactly 30 points in 3 straight games, you'd go 3-0. Like that, I think is where that came from. But it was by far the best defensive performance in a big spot that Oregon's defense has had, I think, since the 2022 Utah game. You think back to that game, they had a hobbled Bo Nix that scored, 17 points? And it was early in the game, too. Like, he couldn't hardly move. We thought Ty Thompson was potentially going to start. Chris Hudson let that slip early in the week. What a time. What a time all of that was, and the names that I just brought up there. But yeah. I think since then, Oregon's had to lean on the offense. And in this game, it was a really balanced attack. And I want your thoughts on Will Stein as well. But you can't look at the defense in this spot and say anything other than they showed up and played an incredible football game.
Well, and I think my favorite part of it is not just what they did through 3.5 quarters. It's the fact that in overtime, and I know the first overtime, it was kind of like, I mean, it was 21 consecutive points, and you were kind of going. We haven't talked much, Spencer, but I was at my sister's wedding watching this, and there were some
fall weddings. Oh goodness.
So there were some nervous Nellies huddled around the cell phone at one of the tables as we were watching the overtime period. But like a huge credit to the defensive staff and the players for getting that done. And, the breakdown that I think Dan and Dylan and some have been kind of really proud in explaining, like, this was the look they were looking for. They had a defensive package specifically for it, and it works. And that right there, like by definition, is what you want from a coordinator, right? Is like making the adjustment, finding something that works, that maybe comes in the face of some down moments. Like that's what you want from your defensive coordinator. Now it's also really hard a lot of the times to know how many of these in-game adjustments are being made, because not a lot of schools provide a 23-minute documentary series once a week explaining a lot of this stuff.
Shout out to Scott Anderson and the team, man. Those guys are crushing it every week.
Nailed it. And you're hearing on the headset, like,
the headset is the best part.
Mike Galowski being like, "Oh, here comes the score route," and then you're hearing from Tosh, "All right, let's try boat. Let's run boat."
Yeah.
Where are we getting this from? I mean, it's honestly incredible cinema.
I also, another one of those moments that I loved. If you haven't watched it yet, what in the world are you doing? Go and check it out. But if you remember, there's a point where Lanning is on the 4th and 1 to Decory and Moore before Oregon's first field goal, when they go play action, a 2-man route in the deep crossers, and you see the linebackers get sucked up by 5 yards to create the space in behind, and Decory just cooks the guy on the perimeter. And the other route runner, Kenyon Sadiq, feed the studs, as Will Stein says. Lanning is looking at the formation and saying, Drew Maringer, he's like, Drew, are we good? Are we good? Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good. We like it. And then they go and execute the play. I cannot get enough of that stuff, man. It's so fun to see that level of a peek behind the curtain.
I was going to say, as people who've never coached football games, in my case at all, I don't know, Spencer, if you got like a little pee-wee coaching career behind it. It's just it's fun to hear what that actually is like pre-snap and the communication, what they're looking at. And because like you said, you draw it up, you've got Drew in the box, you got Brian in the box. This is offense and defense. And they're giving the looks and communicating it down to the head coach or the offensive defensive coordinators to convey whether or not what they're thinking is actually going to work. And just the fact that has to be like a split decision. And in the case of on defense, if like Penn State goes tempo and snaps it a little early, you might not be able to get the call down from the box saying, hey, actually this look is not going to work. Audible, get to something else. I mean, that is, again, it's fascinating and really fun to watch.
I completely agree. I have a fun coordinator story that you and everybody will enjoy hearing, and then we're going to talk Oregon's schedule and Dante Moore somehow in like the final 10 minutes of this show. Just watch. We're going to make it work.